Hey everyone, and welcome to the next episode of our Puff Puff Planted podcast. We have got a fun one here today. I've got a guest here that I will allow her to introduce herself. I feel very lucky for this lady sitting across from me, so we'll get started and we'll let her introduce herself to everybody.
Well, my name is Michelle, and I am the cannabis coach at Planted Provisioning. I have a long history with cannabis. I've been involved since the program initiated for medical marijuana use. And in fact, I moved to the state of Michigan for cannabis for personal reasons, as the state I lived in didn't have any sort of a program. I've really kind of immersed myself into the industry, everything from cultivating cannabis and provisioning centers and helping thousands of people. And it's been an extremely enjoyable journey and really rewarding. I have an opportunity to wake up every day and know that if I have an opportunity to help one person, then I've done my job and can wake up the next morning planning to do the same. So yeah, it's been a really fun journey.
Yeah, it's exciting. So for those of you who don't know, I am Victoria. I'm the retail operations manager for Planted Provisioning over both Whitmore Lake and our Flint location. So I feel, fortunate to have Michelle on my team. I want to get a little bit into, cannabis, like why, Michelle, why do you use cannabis? What do you use it for? Because I know your journey has been one of its own and something that you've been tailoring over the years and have kind of found your, place in cannabis and what it does for you and your body. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. A number of years back, I was involved in a very serious motor vehicle accident. I was hit by a cement truck from a dead stop from behind at 50 miles an hour. Very lucky to have survived that incident, but I was injured pretty seriously, broke all of my ribs, and spent about 3 years in rehab. The treatment and the care that I was given by physicians was wonderful, aside from the fact that the prescription narcotics that were divvied out were astronomical. It would have set anyone into a spiraling addiction. I started to notice those signs a week in, knowing that this was not the path that I wanted to take. I started doing some research. I've worked in hospitals my entire life. I knew the rate of addiction, the dangers of using narcotics, and I knew that just it wasn't the path for me. I started doing some research on cannabis, and the state that I lived in at the time did not have any sort of cannabis program. So it was more or less, buying things off the street, which I knew was really an unsafe way to go about things. I knew that Michigan had a program, and from that point, I just thought, okay, this is the move I have to make. Put the prescription narcotics aside, still dealing with chronic pain. I mean, getting hit by a cement truck at 50 miles an hour is really no joke.
Yeah,
so
it just doesn't go away.
No, definitely not. So, I packed up my things and I moved to Michigan, and it's been quite a journey. I started understanding the science of cannabis, doing a lot of reading, tried my hand at cultivation, and just really understanding the science behind the cannabis plant. I think that was the first steps for me, and all the while using cannabis for chronic pain. A year after that accident, I was given the diagnosis of multiple sclerosis. Definitely life-changing, altering, very scary. But again, kind of looking at how cannabis could assist me with not only my chronic pain, but also looking at cannabis from a holistic level as being like neuroprotectant and trying to preserve my mind and my body for many years in the future. It just seemed to be a natural fit for me, non-addictive, and really helped me during some really rough years. I guess from there, I continued to work within the industry, had my hand in opening dispensaries, operating medical cannabis certification centers, and through that really found my footing. Being able to help patients that were coming in suffering from the same types of pains that I was dealing with, same disease, and just really kind of having my hand and kind of guiding some of these people that were either new to cannabis or had experienced cannabis in a way that really wasn't a good experience. We all have heard those stories where someone's been given an edible or just had a really bad experience by been given just bad information.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I wanted to be a responsible player in the industry. I wanted people to have a resource where they could go and have someone explain how cannabis interacts with the human body.
Yep.
It didn't really seem that there was a lot of that information out there. Obviously, the World Wide Web has a ton of information, some amazingly beneficial, but on the other hand,
some not so credible.
Not so credible.
Yeah.
And then you look at the different stories that I was hearing from some of my clients come in, and knowing that their neighbor handed them some homemade edible that they couldn't tell me how many milligrams it was, and explaining the reaction that they had, not being a favorable reaction. They're like, I'll never eat another edible again. And it pained me to hear that, because I understood that they weren't using cannabis in a safe or responsible manner, receiving bad information from a cousin, a neighbor. The sources were just not credible sources.
Right.
And I wanted to have an opportunity to explain to somebody that they can use cannabis and use cannabis with intent, with purpose, safely. And it just, having that opportunity to work with somebody one-on-one, and seeing how it changed their life for the better. It's just an extremely rewarding opportunity to share some knowledge. Again, coming from a healthcare background and studying the science of cannabis and understanding how it interacts with the human body, it just was a really easy way for me to continue my journey in cannabis, not only for myself, but to help other people.
Yeah, we see it every day at the shop. I mean, we see people come in with loads of misinformation or no information at all. Those are the people that we want to help the most. We want to help everybody, but when we see people come in and they've got kind of preconceived notions, or they're not sure at all what to expect from cannabis, it's super cool that we're able to guide, people in that direction. So when we first hired you on, we saw, the wealth of knowledge that you were and that you are. And we saw something there. We were like, right now, as we get our feet on the ground and we get this thing moving, she's gonna bud tend for us, and she's gonna help people in that way. She's gonna connect with people and touch our customer base that way. And you have, I see it all the time on the floor. I see it whenever you're working. But there's numerous people that come in every day, and it's someone that the rest of our bud tenders can turn to and look to and have, hey, I've got a question for the patient right in front of me. They've got X, Y, and Z, and it's definitely nice to have a resource in the shop that, they came to me for a while, but now they've got you there. And we realize that there's a bigger, portion of the market that needs a cannabis coach, that needs someone to guide them through that. There's coaching for fitness, there's coaching for nutrition, there's just coaching for everything in the world. And it's like, for something that is still so new and is evolving every day, and there's so many products and there's so many places that you can begin in cannabis, to have someone that's able to kind of like see what you're dealing with, what are your ailments, how can we help you, what's the best way to do that? Because there's just right now the market is so tailored to high THC potency and just getting so psychoactively high off this plant that we're starting to like forget what medicinal benefits that this thing can actually provide. So, having you on the team and creating this program that we're just starting to launch has been really exciting, because it's one of that's kind of a whole point behind our brand and our vision for Planted was, we love cannabis, we're here, we're going to make money while we're doing it, but we want to help people. Like, that is our number one thing. We want to end that stigma
absolutely
that surrounds cannabis, because it's so much more than just this plant that can get you high. And
absolutely.
so it's fun to interact with people and to touch people in that way, in sense of, we're going to give you the information that you haven't had. And so it's so cool to watch my staff, when someone comes in with an ailment, a pain, they've got a certain pain, so many places you go, their first thing is like, well, you just need stronger THC, right? Like, you just need more of an edible. You just need higher potency flower that you're smoking. And that's not the case. I love hearing my staff sometimes even turn someone from a full THC product to a full CBD product, because it's,
absolutely,
hey, we know this is what's going to help you. And we know you have to work. We know you have to do these things outside and do in your regular life and be able to function still. Because like you've said to me a million times, like, the pain doesn't just go away when you have to go to work, or when you have to drive a car, or when you have to do something. So,
right. And it's not always appropriate to be high.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? I mean, there's a time and a place where maybe that fits into your lifestyle, or maybe it doesn't. And with all of the research that continues to come out with cannabis and the changing of what, what's happening in the market, we start to see all these new products continue to come out, and there's so many different methods of consumption. There's all this new research on all of these cannabinoids, and there's so many different ways to medicate. So it really comes down to, looking at someone's individual needs and personalizing and tailoring that treatment regimen. And there's just a million ways to go about it, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that a lot of people go under the assumption that cannabis equals high, or THC equals high. And that's not always the case. No. I'm gonna look at each individual person's needs. Say we have a 93-year-old individual come in that's suffering from chronic pain, cancer, whatever the situation may be. I'm going to take a look at that situation and say, you know what, maybe THC isn't the best route, or psychoactivity isn't the best route.
Psychoactivity,
yeah. There are ways to administer, THC in the form of THCA with no psychoactivity. And those are the types of things that maybe the general public isn't aware of. Yep. So that's a huge go-to for me. Sometimes THC is necessary along with incorporating CBD, just for that higher pain threshold. Yeah. But when I look at somebody that maybe has instability issues at an older age, right, I'm really not looking to recommend a product whereas it may weaken their knees or get them a little bit wobbly with that psychoactivity, right? Because I'm not looking at, having somebody have a slip and fall because they're just really not feeling so stable because of that psychoactivity. I would rather provide THC in a non-psychoactive manner, whether it be in a topical form. A lot of people, assume that using any type of THC is going to get you high, and that isn't the case. So tailoring to somebody's individual needs, taking a look at the whole picture, what their wants and needs are, what their current state of affairs is. I really think that's important, rather than having somebody just walk into a provisioning center and making a choice on their own.
Blindly buy something.
Right,
yeah.
Or being provided with inaccurate information. I couldn't tell you how many times that I have engaged with a provisioning center where you have somebody behind the counter that's kind of looking at you like, oh, this stuff is fire. Yeah. And that's all they're really, kind of looking at. And that's not the way I view or approach trying to assist somebody on their cannabis journey.
Right. And there's definitely people in the market that all they want is fire, right? They're just using it recreationally. So It's like, we understand those people are out there, and heck, we'll find you something that's fire and that'll definitely get you high.
We
but,
have that,
we've
sure.
got that. But for a lot of it, you see people come in too. I mean, and what's fun too is you get customers that come in like regularly, right? Like they have been using cannabis for a while. They just use it recreationally. But then sometimes you can dive a little deeper and you're like, well, what are you doing with it? Like, what are you trying to do with it? And then they're like, oh, well, I don't sleep very well. And so, I just smoke at night. That's why I smoke indicas. And it's like, well, have you tried any products with CBN in them? And then they're like, what? So it's like, you can even take just someone that's been using cannabis for a long time and make them realize that like this can give you way more benefits than what you're currently receiving.
Funnest type of client coming in the doors is somebody that's been using cannabis since the 70s. And they, really kind of look at this like, I know what I'm doing. I don't need any assistance. But it's a matter of just asking one question.
Yep.
What's your goal with using cannabis?
Yeah.
Right. And, or have you heard of CBN?
Yeah.
Everybody knows what CBD is for the most part. But introducing to them another non-psychoactive cannabinoid, such as CBG.
Yep.
Asking them about, do you have any trouble with gut health? Are you having trouble sleeping at night? Have you heard of CBN? To see their eyes just really open, that's the best part of my day.
Yeah.
Is if I can provide one tiny bit of information.
Yeah. Whether they act on it or not or buy something, now they're going home like curious, you know? Like we're creating like the Canna curious customers that are like,
absolutely.
Wait, what else have I been missing then?
And if it's not something for them, it might be that their parents or their best friend, they're dealing with issues that they heard something from inside of planted and they're bringing that home to one of their loved ones and sharing that information. And that then can spark a conversation with someone else that maybe knows nothing about cannabis and they walk in that door knowing that they're going to have a resource, knowing that they're going to have educated staff, a dedicated person to kind of hold their hand through this entire experience. Have that opportunity to have a sit down one-to-one and really dive deep into what they're trying to accomplish with cannabis usage or simply just answer questions. I mean, I think, again, as you were saying, that this industry has a lot of misinformation. If we as planted organization can provide some better information, then we're doing our job.
We're doing our job. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what we're here. We're here to, help people with cannabis and to end that stigma. So it's something I always tell everybody that I've worked with personally, that I've personally touched in that way. It's that, hey, cannabis is like an individualized personal journey. And you're going to have some patience.
Absolutely.
And I don't say that, lightly. I mean, you're going to try a product that may not work for you at all. And you might get frustrated. You may try a product that works exactly how you wanted it to, and you may find a product that's like somewhere right in between. So I'm always telling everybody, take it with a grain of salt, because I can tell you my personal experience with that product, but the chances are yours is going to be different, because biologically, neurologically, we are wired different. We are built different.
Absolutely. Everybody metabolizes things differently.
Exactly.
The way that you're going to receive a prescription medication is not the same way I'm going to receive a prescription medication. Nope. So same goes for cannabis. Yep. Everybody processes differently. I think one of the most common things I hear is, oh, I don't want any CBD. I tried that for a couple days and it didn't do anything.
Yeah. And starts that conversation of explaining, the benefits of using CBD regularly. It's like a vitamin. So, I mean, those are the things that, we can always touch on some of the misconceptions in the market, but I think the biggest one is that people just associate anything with the cannabis plant, whether it's CBD or THC, that it's going to get you high. So we can debunk that myth and just tell you that CBD is a non-psychoactive cannabinoid found in the cannabis plant. THC is also, it is a psychoactive cannabinoid found in the cannabis plant, but it can also be used in a non-psychoactive manner in the form of THCA. So you can gain all these benefits from the plant without that psychoactivity that you're scared of. We'll definitely, worry about the people that have to drug test for their jobs, right? And we have to make sure that we're providing them with the certain form of CBD that doesn't have it isn't full spectrum. It doesn't contain any THC in it at all.
Correct. Those are always important questions that I tend to ask when working with somebody on a one-on-one basis. Yeah. Do you have any concerns about drug testing? Because we're going to position them into a product that isn't going to
lose them a career.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think that's the big point with that too, is that we like to really recommend topicals in our shop. And that's something that I don't see when I go to dispensaries. I don't usually see a lot of selection on topicals, and I don't see much like offering or suggestion of topicals. And that's like almost my number one go-to when someone has, especially something like joint or
arthritis,
like arthritic pain. It's like, get a topical. And people, assuming that anything with THC is going to get them high. So whether they drug test or not, they're scared of getting high from a topical. I'm like, listen, if you eat it, probably get high, but don't, because it's gross and it's got things you shouldn't eat.
For sure.
But you can use this all over your entire body and not feel a psychoactive high. You'll feel like definitely like your muscles are relaxed and that you're getting this pain relief, but you're not going to experience this like high at all, like psychologically. So
I think that's one of the most beautiful products on the market is transdermal application. Yeah. Again, no psychoactivity. You can use, balms and salves. I use, a high THC, high CBD balm every day of the week. And it allows me to still, drive or operate a motor vehicle. It still allows me to go to the job and not be high, but it's still tackling my pain. And I think a lot of people live in that world, right? They have to go sit at their office and they may have, degenerative disc disease, and applying some of that topical first thing in the morning and continuously throughout the day will allow them to be more productive at work, not just focused on that chronic pain that's, grinding them out. Using topically, you can use patches, right? THC, CBD, CBN patches. I mean, there's a whole host of patches that are available on the market where they can be applied somewhere vascularly, like a wrist or the top of the foot, and they'll administer out small doses throughout the day. Microdosing is one of my favorite ways to try to accomplish, tackling someone's chronic pain or illness. Small doses of a non-psychoactive THC can make a world of difference in, with someone. So I love topicals. I think they're such a great way.
And I think that's, you hit a point there with microdosing, even with, something that does have that psychoactive THC in it at a microdose level, you're, for most consumers, and some people are really, sensitive to the THC and the psychoactivity, but when you're microdosing, like I've been smoking for 8 or 9 years, and I personally still eat edibles that are a microdose. I eat like a 2.5 to a 2.5 milligram CBD 1-to-1 to THC. And those for me, like I can have a couple of them, or I can build my high with them. I love microdosing for pain, and I love microdosing even for like socially, just for fun. But that's something that people don't realize, is that you can take this like tiny low dose and still not feel this overwhelming psychoactivity, but get the pain relief or feel a bit of minor psychoactivity. But so many people are just used to jumping into cannabis full force. And this is something else I think is funny, is that people will buy a joint or will roll a joint or pack a bowl, right? And there's this overwhelming need or feeling or desire to smoke the whole thing, right? And I tell people, 'cause I'm like, you just hit it once and put it out if that's all you need, right? Like if you're just looking for pain, or if I have a headache or a stomach ache or something that's like bothering me in that moment and I'm like, I need immediate relief, I will go out, hit a joint once, put it out. I'm barely high at all. And I'm like, oh, wow, okay, I feel better. Like that definitely helped me take my mind off things. And so it's so funny that there's just this misconception that you have to eat the whole gummy, or you have to smoke the whole joint, or you have to do those things that's like socially acceptable or whatever it is. And it's like, no, you can just use as much cannabis as you need for yourself.
Well, and looking at too with like starting doses, right? One of my favorite, products in the shop is when you're looking at first-time users, having a high dose of CBD and a very, very minimal dose of THC. It's a nice introduction for those new users or people that are extremely drug sensitive to have as little as 1 milligram of THC and a high dose of CBD, right? CBD is going to help tone and taper that high. And looking at 1 milligram, chances are you might not even feel that psychoactivity. But it's that stepping stone, and you can build into
Right.
once you start to feel some amount of relief, right?
Yeah.
Slowly adding pieces to that.
And that's also like something that allows customers who haven't used cannabis or THC before to feel comfortable with it, because there's always that anxiety behind it. And I tell people, like, if you're going to anything with anxiety, like, it's probably going to give you anxiety, you know, if you use it, it's a placebo thing a lot of the time. So it's like people who are like curious about it, want to use it, but are also pulling back because they've heard some scary stories. It's like, hey, I can promise you that at 1 milligram, you're not going to overdo it. Can I promise you won't feel it? Not really. Can I promise you that you will? Not really. But I can promise you that it's not going to overdo it.
Right.
And so it's one of those abilities to allow people to even get comfortable with THC being in their body and realizing that it doesn't have to create this horrible high or this wreak havoc in your body, like with that psychoactivity. And so it's kind of nice to be able to introduce that to people and say, like, let's get you on the cannabis train. Let's work you in that way. And I love that, you know, we have some of those gummies that you're mentioning that are like 1 to 20s, and or working someone off of just plain CBD into using a little bit of THC so they can realize the like compounding effects that they can have when used together.
When pairing multiple cannabinoids, the uptake, you know, in the human body just increases tenfold. And so, like, I always try to pair cannabinoids, whether it be multiple non-psychoactives or a non-psychoactive with a psychoactive. But yeah, I mean, it's a wonderful stepping stone, whether it be your first introduction or a reintroduction after a bad experience. Right. I had a client the other night that was like, I will never eat an edible ever again. And, you know, a couple minutes conversation, saying, look, I think that a logical way to re-step back into this would be using a high CBD, low THC gummy, just to step back into it, right? Mm-hmm. Because I think the need and the want was there, but the fear was overwhelming.
Gratefully so, you know, in a lot of those scenarios too.
It's really an uncomfortable place to be when you've consumed too much THC. And once it's there, it's there.
It's like the only feeling or kind of thought you have on it is that's what I'm going to feel like.
Consuming.
And so we tell people all the time, like, we'd rather you feel nothing than feel too much of something.
Absolutely.
So, you know, we're always like, if you eat this and you don't feel anything, that's okay. You know, eat another one, or, you know, we'll get you something that's a little bit higher dose, but like, let's start here. Like, it's worth spending like maybe that 10 or 15 extra bucks to make sure we're not going to scare you like away from cannabis. Cause that's not my goal. No. The goal is to help you medicinally. And I know that whether you feel it or not, this is still going to help you medicinally. It's just, you might not feel that psychoactivity that, you know, cause some people do come in going, I don't hate the high, but, you know, I don't need it to be overwhelming. And so it's interesting to find that balance too, because people don't realize there's so much that plays into like the high that you receive. What did you eat that day? Do you have a fast metabolism? Do you have those proper enzymes in your body to break this down? So there's so many factors that even you as a cannabis coach are guiding people through, and, you know, learning from them, coming back in multiple times to see you and to talk to you and go, you know, I remember you and I both working with a customer of ours who she came in a few times, and she was, you know, trying to wean off some prescription medications and sub in some cannabis products to help. And, you know, she was super responsive and super patient. And as we and her and us, we all tried to figure out, you know, what is the best route for her? Is this something, you know, she claims maybe I'm getting a headache from this product. And it's like, well, let's figure out, is it your dose? Is it the product? Is it what you're doing? You know, things like that.
It takes a constant stream of communication. Yeah. You know, when I work with a client, I want them logging their cannabis use. It's so critically important. You know, what did you eat that day? Did you exercise that day? You know, and it's not even only what you eat. We know that THC binds itself to fatty substances. Yeah. So, you know, if you had a nice healthy, you know, salad for dinner versus a bucket of chicken wings, right? That high is going to be different. So logging that cannabis experience, what they did throughout the day, exactly when they dosed, how many milligrams they ingested, what food they've taken in, all of that plays a role in what effects that client's going to feel. Right. So the more information that a client can provide us with, I think the more it helps us to identify how we can go about treating them,
what products are
and making those critical little changes, right? Because again, everyone's cannabis journey is going to be a little bit different.
Yeah.
The way that you process cannabis is certainly different than the way I process cannabis. And everybody's wants and needs are different. So it's important to have a sit down with somebody and really understand, like, do you not want to have any psychoactivity, or do you not mind that psychoactivity?
Yep.
And really kind of looking at their overall lifestyle and how we can incorporate cannabis to be tailored specifically to them.
Yeah.
It's so important because not everybody's looking to come in and, ingest a 20 milligram edible and just zone out for the rest of the night.
Yeah. And some people have, dietary restrictions that don't even really allow them to eat gummies or those things. So that's like, I feel very fortunate, our market in Michigan is still obviously developing, and we've got a long way to go in terms of an industry, but we've got so many ingestion methods, and they just keep popping up, drinks and powders and gummies. And so it's like super cool to be able to always know that we at least have a product for somebody that's going to help them.
Oh, without a doubt.
Because there's just so many, like you said, there's so many people that come in, have the dietary restrictions, or they have, preferences because they're vegan, or they don't, they're vegetarian, whatever it may be. They have a dairy allergy, or however it works. It's just really cool that we're able to sit down with them and to take this information from them and try to develop a plan. And it's like, we're going to start you on this, and you're going to come back and you're going to let us know how it goes. And we're going to continue to tailor this until you're finding like that ultimate relief that we can get for you in whatever way that may be. So it's just been a lot of fun to watch you on the floor, but to watch the staff on the floor and watch our customers come back reoccurring like all the time, because they know that they're going to find some relief in what they're looking for.
It absolutely is the most rewarding career. I will tell you that, I've had clients that I've worked with specifically that have come back in and literally have had tears rolling down their face after an introduction with having CBN because they're not sleeping well at night, or, and just going years and years and years of not getting adequate sleep. That changes so much for somebody. Yep. Your mental attitude, your ability, your temperament. I mean, it's just not having that sleep is critical. And so to provide somebody with something that literally changes their life, yep, and to have them come back in and provide you with feedback in the form of tears rolling down their face, just when that happiness is just that relief is so present that it comes out in the form of, waterworks.
Tears, yeah.
It's just, to know that we have had a profound change in somebody's life, mm-hmm, that is why I do what I do.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's just so important. I think it's important to know too, like as the industry, you kind of touched on this earlier, but as the industry continues to change, it is our responsibility, not only as an organization, but myself as the cannabis coach, to continue to study how cannabis is changing, yep, right? How all these new different methods of ingestion, all these new cannabinoids that we continue to study and bring to the forefront of the market, to stay on top of that research. Mm-hmm. Because what happened 2 years ago or 5 years ago, mm-hmm, the world is such a different place now, yep, right? In terms of what is being produced to the market. Yep. I've been using, on a regular basis, RSO in the evening, the Cannalicious Recovery. Yeah. I use it with intent for many reasons. As a neuroprotectant, I love the fact that it has a lower THC. That's nice. So I'm not like typically when people look at RSOs, I'm like, oh my gosh, the high behind that, yep, right? Looking at some of these RSOs specifically, like the Recovery, it's a low THC content, mm-hmm, but a much higher content of 4 or 5 different non-psychoactive cannabinoids, yeah, that are all managing different things, right? And so with the diagnosis for myself with MS, I'm looking to protect what is being degraded, mm-hmm, right? I have, a disease that's attacking my brain and my spinal cord. I'm going to be looking directly at a neuroprotectant in a non-pharmaceutical form. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's the perfect ticket for someone such as me or somebody that's dealing with a neurodegenerative disease, yeah, right? And it doesn't mean that just because you're ingesting an RSO, you're not going to get completely annihilated high. Yeah. So I look at different medications based on
their different applications and
Absolutely.
how they can help. Because I mean, that's the cool thing about the recovery RSO is it can help in some like extenuating circumstances like yours. But it's also, you know, kind of good for someone who's just did a really intense workout. I ran a 10K or I ran a marathon, and my muscles, I need to recover from this. And so it's something too that's going to help, you know, recover after that and help your muscles recover faster.
Yeah.
So things like that people don't realize that these applications can be, these different products can be used for. Right. I mean, you're doing so many everyday things that, yeah, like you said, RSO can be kind of intimidating and scary when you start to look at that potency of THC. But, you know, what Cannalicious is doing is creating these different blends of RSO that allow you to really tailor your experience with RSO, which is something that I haven't seen other companies do before. Like RSO has always been known to have cancer killing properties and to be used by cancer patients. But now it's starting to become something that can be used with people that have, you know, other ailments, something it just as serious or something less serious. And that's what's super cool about what they're doing is, you know, creating these products that become more versatile because we can use them.
And seeing it in a gummy form, which is, you know, most commonly when people come in, it's like, oh, gummies. That's the first thing they, you know, they know about cannabis, right? Yep. So seeing gummies produced with an RSO, I think is just beyond exciting.
And it's like the least intimidating thing why people always reach for gummies because they're like, okay, smoking something, putting it in my lungs, or that looks weird, or that, you know, the pieces scare people, the rigs scare people, the bowls do, but people look at a gummy and they're like, I can get down with that. Yeah, I can get down with that. Yeah. So, you know, for us with this cannabis coaching, if it's something that you're interested in, we do have an email for that. So I'll shout that out here. It's going to be cannabiscoach@plantedprovisioning.com. That is cannabiscoach@plantedprovisioning.com. You can feel free to, you know, shoot an email. This is kind of directly Michelle's email here. So she'll, you know, if it's something that you're interested in doing, we definitely recommend you sending a little bit about yourself. You know, what are the things that you're suffering from? What are the ailments you're dealing with? What are you looking to do with cannabis? Are you currently using other prescription medications? Are you, you know, what is your current regimen? What are you doing to handle, you know, what you're dealing with
your
right now?
Your experience level. Have you had a bad experience with cannabis? Are you a daily smoker? Are, you know, like...
Yep. Are you a new user?
A new user, yeah. Yep. All important things, you know, for us to really dissect and have a good jump off, right? Mm-hmm. I need to know what wants and needs are of our clients so that we can, you know, jump from there and try to make a difference. Yeah.
Are you looking to do this one-on-one with Michelle to be in a more private setting? Are you looking to bring in your sister, your mom, or your dad with you? Are you looking, you know, for whatever you're kind of looking for? We're happy to help. You know, Michelle's happy to help. We just, any information that you can give us will make this way more tailored of an experience and make sure that your time is used to the utmost, you know, that it can be. So that's what's so exciting. We're super excited to launch this. We're super excited for Michelle to head this up. I've never seen anything like this in a dispensary before, personally. I mean, there's definitely always been that maybe one bud tender that is pretty educated in a store that you go into, or maybe not at all. But it's really cool to have, you know, something that we can offer to like our customers and our patients that is, you know, that feeling of one-on-one where you don't have to feel rushed through a store, or that you don't have to feel that you're not getting that kind of attention that you need, or that you're annoyed you're asking too many questions.
There's never, ever a stupid question when it comes down to, you know, asking. I want people to ask questions, as many as they can throw at me.
And that's, you know, something that we're encouraging, you know, our community for sure to utilize this program that we're going to launch, because it's going to, anything, like she said, whether you're actually, or you're just curious about, you know, like, what is THC? Like, what are these gummies? Like, what, you know, what is this? And it's just intimidating to you, you know, allow Michelle to make that less intimidating for you, you know, allow us to show you what cannabis is. And, you know, for us, a big portion is just educating the community and educating people around us. You know, whether THC or CBD or cannabis is for you at all, we do just want people to understand the benefits of it. And maybe it's not for you, but maybe it's for someone in your life, or maybe it's not for someone in your life. But just having that better understanding can kind of end that stigma that, you know, everything that surrounds cannabis.
Having conversations with intent, I think, is not only beneficial for our clients coming in, but also for the community. Yeah. You know, I think that we really pride ourselves on being really community oriented, and, you know, having that opportunity to sit down and speak with the community, to have them have a better understanding of what cannabis is, understanding that cannabis isn't for everybody.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just not. But to have that education, to have that conversation from an educational standpoint, I'm here for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's,
So.
our whole vision, our whole plan. So I really appreciate you joining us here today, Michelle, and, introducing yourself to our base of people, our audience. I feel that we're going to do pretty great things with this cannabis coaching thing. We're
Absolutely.
excited. We're excited to educate the community. We're just excited to start educating people person by person and then creating a more educated kind of consumer base. Because if we can get more people safe access to cannabis, using it safely, helping with whatever ailments they have, it, like you said, we're doing our jobs. That's kind of the whole point of what we're doing here. So, just kind of a last shout out to Cannalicious and Detroit Edibles for being our sponsors. They've got a wide array of products that we carry. We've got so many cool products from them. Michelle's familiar with a lot of them. So that's definitely something that we're excited to be able to offer and to show people as well. So, thank you again for joining us. And
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we'll see you again soon, I'm sure.
Great.